Views on Salam Media. Our next guest is the dynamic Busisiwe Mavuso. She is Business Leadership South Africa CEO and board member of Business Unity South Africa. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program. Lovely to be talking with you today.
Good morning, Julian. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, we're going to be talking business. We're going to talk South Africa. We're going to talk the current and future scenario as far as business and entrepreneurship is concerned. But we also know that the elections are around the corner, and post-elections and the results is very definitely going to change, I hope for the better, but going to change the landscape of South Africa in every aspect, business and otherwise. So the all-important question to you then, and I know that you have put out a statement suggesting that we will do well in the next 30 years. Please, God, I do hope and pray that that does change and we do well, because we know currently, as you and I speak, our biggest hurdle and challenge in South Africa is youth unemployment. It's sitting at 32% when I last checked. Other people are suggesting it's sitting at 40%. And that has a very, very negative ripple effect. I think crime being at the top of the scale. So if we don't get that right, I'm afraid we're not going to be moving forward.
Absolutely.
Good morning to you once again. Welcome. And your thoughts on my opening statements.
So you're absolutely right, Julie. If youth unemployment is not going to be contained, then I think we must brace ourselves for another July 2021 anarchy.
Oh.
It was only 4 days of destruction, but the cost of it to the economy, I think we still haven't clearly quantified it. I had a report the other day saying it was about 150 billion rands and counting. So it's something that it is a ticking time bomb. It is a recipe for disaster to sit with 2 out of 3 young people with idle hands. It's something that we're going to have to concern ourselves with. And unfortunately, it's not just government's problem, it's South Africa's problem. And because it's South Africa's problem, it makes it business's problem. When you look at what happened in July 2021, a lot of people were actually saying those 4 days were an attack on the business community, because the biggest loser out of those 4 days was the business community, which was the shopping malls, it was the distribution warehouses, it was the, everything, the trucks that were actually transporting goods and whatever the case is. So it was really the business community who actually came out the biggest losers. So the reason why I really think that the next 30 years would probably be better than what we saw in the last 30 years or in the first 30 years is, I think when you look at the moment, there is a very concerted effort between business and government, Julie, to make sure that this country works. We are seeing political will, under the leadership of Cyril, of course, of making sure that they bring business to the party, of making sure that business becomes part of the solutions. You've got the business government partnership where we're actually looking at the issue of energy, at the issue of transport and logistics, and then at the issue of crime and corruption. And there is a plan to look at how do we actually expand, from those 3 initial areas to a further, I don't know how many other areas. But then from where we are sitting at the moment, we are making progress on those 3 areas. I know a lot of people are skeptical, and they are saying that the reason why you don't have load shedding at the moment is because we're going to elections. Come the 1st of June, we're going to be hit with stage 6 load shedding. And I understand where that skepticism comes
Absolutely.
from. But when you look at it, Julie, honestly, we have seen a 61% less load shedding. That is because we have also added over 6 gigawatts of new generation, to the grid. And from a transport and logistics perspective, we have seen about a 36% reduction in waiting time to anchor container vessels, and 45% fewer vessels are anchored outside of the port of Durban. And from a crime and corruption perspective, we're seeing 65% reduction in criminal incidents on the North Corridor, which enables the national coal supply, and that is from a train and freight logistics. So there is improvement. We are not where we'd like to be yet, but we definitely are seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And if we can just continue on this trajectory, government allowing business to come in with our resources, Julie, with our skills, with our expertise, with our knowledge, because the reality is that that skills and expertise that is required to turn this country around no longer exists in government, thanks to the cadre deployment. And that is the
Absolutely.
tragedy of the second 15 years, because when you look at it, 1994 up until about 2008, Julie, were okay. The economy was really doing well, because when you look at it by 2008, we were recording an economic growth of about 5%. We boasted an investment grade credit rating. The debt to GDP ratio was sitting at about 24%. The unemployment rate was sitting at just under 20%. The per capita growth had moved from $3.7 to about $6.3, $3,786 to $6,356, in 2011. So that was really an area or an era where South Africa did very well. And then the next 15 years, state capture project, Zuma came into the picture, and we saw each and every single one of those indicators, slipping backwards. So the other thing, when I reflect on this, Julie, it is clear that we often underestimate the importance of leadership and governance. It is amazing how leadership and governance seem like such over-exaggerated concepts until they are no longer there. Because in the second 15 years of our democracy, that is what we messed with. The leadership and governance from 1994 to 2008 were there, and then we brought in this thief called Zuma. Leadership and governance went out the window. Honestly, and he brought his cronies, because the state capture project, Julie, was really, the term clever blacks came around that time. People who knew what they were doing at Eskom, at Transnet, at these government entities, they were actually chucked out. And he brought thieves like him into these institutions who actually made sure that the looting became possible. And
Okay, Busi,
yeah.
let me come in here. Things haven't improved since Cyril Ramaphosa has taken office, has it? Because that's when deployment seemed to have accelerated. People were hopeful that with his business background, his exposure to corporate would really turn the country around. That's my first question. My second question, you alluded to July 2021,
Yes.
and you threw out an astronomical figure of the billions.
Yeah.
Do you think that if July 2021 didn't happen, that all those billions that were lost to the economy in the country, we could have used that money for education, housing, healthcare, and of course, more importantly, employment? Your
So
thoughts?
So the cadre deployment in Cyril's era has definitely remained, because it was entrenched, during the Zuma years. But I don't know if I would actually say it has. You would see, Julie, that in his own way, he has tried to bring about. I mean, he's the champion. Obviously, we haven't seen the results yet, but he's the champion of the professionalization of the public service agenda. We have set up a public service commission, the chair being Professor Somadoda Figeni, a very renowned, able, articulate, person who has got the right moral authority, who has been charged with leading the professionalization of the public service. He has come to business and he has said, I've been given this huge task of professionalizing the public service. Please help, as business. And you remember when you came in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first things that it did, was look at these boards, of SOEs, SAA, Eskom, Transnet, SAPC, a whole lot of these boards. He removed the Zuma cronies and he put in professional people. He also tried putting the same executive teams. You will see what he has
But
done.
we haven't seen much change, Busi. We haven't seen much change since then.
I absolutely agree, but you see, we cannot underestimate the damage that was done during the state capture project. Now, this is a project that has taken on 15 years, Julie. And I don't think that would be fair as a country to think that we can eradicate that. The rule of thumb is that when you take 2 years to destroy, you must know that you will take twice that period to rebuild. So if it's 15 years of destruction, let's agree and let's accept that it will take probably twice as long, to actually reverse that erosion. So the malfeasance, Julie, has actually gone down very deep. It has gone very wide and it has gone very high. So to eradicate government, from corruption, it is actually going to take twice as long because we took 15 years of entrenching this system. So it is very systemic, it is very endemic, and you find people even at the lowest levels of your ESCOMs. I mean, ESCOM and Transnet continue to be the ground zero for siphoning funds out of the state because it was a culture, Julie, that was embedded, during the state capture project, a culture of thieving, a culture of corruption. I was listening to Praveen Gordhan, I think it was last week sometime, I don't know at which platform he was talking at, and he was talking about how ESCOM and Transnet continue, to be, as I'm saying, the ground zero for siphoning funds out of the state, to say that the state, we are naive as a country to think that the state capture project is gone, because the way its roots are still very much embedded in a whole lot of these institutions. So I'm just saying that, yes, we have not seen any changes, but there has been an attempt, to try and bring in the professionals, in different spaces to make sure that we can actually deal with the damage that we actually saw during the last 15 years of our democracy.
And to get rid of the rot, obviously. We need to go for an ad break. So I'm going to ask you to ponder on what is it that Business Leadership South Africa and Business Unity South Africa can do to assist government post the elections, whoever is going to be the leading party, to assist government to bring back the to pull the country back from the brink of absolute disaster. And if I sound very pessimistic, I think the majority of South Africa feels the same way as I do. So let's go for that ad break. And when we get back, let's talk some more.
That's true.
This is Salam Media.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic Sharia and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
Southern Africa Dawah Network is a non-profit organization striving to uplift the disadvantaged and empowering through education and dawah. Donate to the SADN centers, the M.A. Motala Islamic Center, as well as our Islamic centers in Amoti, Imtalumi, Botshabelo and Castile. Donate your zakat and lillah today. Contact Farooq Sheikh 076 321 0650, Yusuf Mohammadi 072 259 3457, or the SADN head office 031 304 8000. Our account, Standard Bank, account number 050 856 294 for your zakat, or 050 879 790 for your lillah. Dawah through education, education through dawah, the Southern Africa Dawah Network.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and free zakat calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
The people of Palestine need your support now. Africa Muslims Agency is on the ground, already providing food, medication, and emergency supplies in Gaza. Donate any amount to Heal Palestine at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Media day by day.
South Africa is a water scarce country. We don't get a lot of rain, even though we get some of these flash floods these days. And that's a big problem. You know, if you think about how the biggest cities and things of the world are built, they're built on main water resources. And in South Africa, if you look at Joburg as an example, the Vaal River is not necessarily a natural water resource. So it's a very finite resource that we need to look after. But the biggest problem is the contamination of this water, and specifically because of our wastewater treatment works, so that it doesn't have an ecological negative consequence. Problem is that our municipalities have neglected our wastewater treatment works significantly over the last decade, so much so that probably about 70% of our wastewater treatment works in the country are completely dysfunctional, discharging raw sewage into our dams and rivers.
Julius Kleinhans, the Executive Manager for Social Innovation at WaterCan.
This is Salam Media. Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. It's exactly 8:49. We are talking with Business Leadership South Africa CEO, and that, of course, is you, Busisiwe Mavuso. You're also board member of Business Unity South Africa. How do these boards serve government and, of course, the South Africans at large?
Yeah. So I think the question that you asked before we went on break, Julie, of how does BLSA Busa and business, in particular, plans to assist government post the election. I really think that the business government partnership that we have at the moment, it really is a working formula. I think it is really a primary example, Julie, of a collaborative effort which is focused on addressing the key fundamentals, and business through its structures is supporting government to implement the key priority interventions, in the areas of energy, transport, logistics, and crime and corruption, as I've already articulated. I mean, in the partnership, you've got about 130 plus CEOs, who are responsible for approximately 11 trillion rands market cap of listed entities. And these are CEOs who employ more than 1.2 million people. And they've actually pledged, to say that due to our collective belief in South Africa and our determination to assist in realizing the country's potential, we are actually going to roll up our sleeves, and we're going to make sure that we hold hands with government to salvage, South Africa from its pending economic demise. And the intention really from a business perspective, it is to bring the resources and capacity to bear to address the socio-economic crises that are actually facing our country. So it is really a commitment from business, Julie, to address, the current challenges with the intention of achieving sustainable economic growth. When you started, you spoke about youth unemployment. When you look at why the youth unemployment is as high as it is, When you look at why we are the most unequal society in the world, you will see that because investment is not flowing. And the reason why investment is not flowing is because we don't have a conducive environment within which business is operating in this country. If you're going to sit with 10 hours of load shedding a day, Julie, forget about trying to get investment into the country. If you are going to sit with the transport and logistics, which is not functional, where after you've produced the goods, you can't get them to market because the Durban ports and the Cape Town ports are dysfunctional. A lot of companies at the moment, when they export and import, they go to Mozambique, they go to Mauritius. So what would be the business case for investing in South Africa? When you sit with crime and corruption at the levels that it is at, which is so high, you can't get investment into the country. So the reason why we have started with these three areas of energy, transport, logistics, and crime and corruption, it is precisely so that we can get a trading environment for business to be conducive. If the trading environment is conducive, the business confidence goes up. If the business confidence goes up, the investment comes in. If investment comes in, then we start growing at the right levels. Our levels of economic growth at the moment are not what they should be. In 2023, we posted a 0.6% economic growth. In 2024, the IMF is projecting that we're only going to post a 0.8% economic growth. That time, our population is growing at 1.6%. So you can see that when your population grows higher than your economic growth, you will never be able to arrest poverty. You will never be able to arrest unemployment. You are actually becoming poorer as a country, and your citizens are becoming poorer on a year-to-year basis. We want to try and go back to the levels of 2008 that I was talking about, the first 15 years of our democracy, where we were posting about 5% economic growth. That is why, these 130 plus CEOs have actually put up about 170 million rands of funding that we have raised. We have given 350 of our experts, that are being put to Eskom and Transnet, who are helping, with the restoration of these two entities in particular, because energy and transport and logistics is where we have started. And I think that is the best way in which business can actually intervene in trying to help government. It is making sure that the rebuilding exercise, Julie, that we're on as a country, business can actually fold up or rather roll up its sleeves and make sure that we are active participants in that.
And undoubtedly, if those areas are addressed, we can truly start reinventing and moving forward. It will automatically create jobs, and we can then start moving forward. Transnet too plays a huge role. And I think if we can get the rail system going as well, we'll have less long-haul trucks on the roads, less carnage on the roads that we're seeing. It's unbelievable. On the other hand, you also know there's vested interests in trucking companies, and they'll probably do everything they possibly can to keep their trucks on the road, because that means money in their back pockets. So everybody has vested interest and everybody wants their share of the pie. How will those type of issues be addressed? The issue around people who have interest and interest in coal mining, because if they can sell the coal on to Eskom, then they're going to be making a living and they'll be employing people. Obviously, they're not keen at all on clean energy, because what happens to all of those miners and the mines, does that mean that's going to shut down? So we are caught up in a very vicious cycle, are we not?
We are caught up in a very vicious cycle. And you're asking a very difficult question that I don't know if I can be able to answer, because you're raising a very legitimate point. The reason why Transnet will tell you that there's a lot of steel and tracks, where the trains run, that has been stolen. And whenever right, and I mean, this is a mafia, this is a syndicate. Julie, that is number one. Obviously, they're taking this steel and they're selling it, but they're also preventing Transnet from running, because to your point, they know that as soon as the locomotives start to run, then there's nothing for them to do, because then the services for their tracks are actually not going to be needed. So as soon as they lay these tracks, the following day, just overnight, late today, overnight, they've actually been stolen. Eskom will tell you that as soon as they lay these cables, then they are stolen as well. The reason why you have the diesel mafia, the reason why you have the coal mafia, who are working with people inside Eskom, who are deliberately tripping the system so that we get load shedding, because when there's load shedding, then you have to go and buy diesel. It's precisely because of all those things. So you can see, for me, it's really an issue of crime and corruption. I think we have actually allowed, the crime and corruption in this country to actually get to unprecedented levels. But if you ask me, we are naive, Julie, to think that we were not at some point going to be sitting at these high levels of lawlessness. Because I don't see, government, because when you talk and you say, who's the adult in the room? Who's supposed to show the direction? Why do we have, for instance, reports are telling us that organized crime is at high levels? It is because government has actually allowed the lawlessness to continue, because it is happening, at government level. This fish called South Africa is rotten from the head, Julie. And that is the bottom line. So it becomes difficult to effectively deal with crime when you have thieves masquerading as government officials, when you have political figures who have been implicated in the state capture project and they continue to walk around with impunity, when you have government officials who see nothing wrong with stealing PPE, from the sick and food parcels from the hungry, and they still continue to hold these political, offices. So it becomes a problem. So when it comes to crime and corruption, it is a culture problem, a culture that has been cultivated and set from the top. The political culture in South Africa, Julie, is that being accused of crime is not embarrassing. We have a culture that is conducive to theft. And if that is the culture at the top, where a whole lot of these ministers, a whole lot of these DDGs, a whole lot of these mayors, in municipalities are actually implicated. We know, that they've actually been fingered, in a whole lot of this corruption, and nothing is being done to remove them. They are still sitting, holding those offices, and they are still earning salaries. So if that is the culture at the top, what makes us think as a country that people won't follow suit? Because the message clearly that we are sending is that crime pays and nothing will.
Absolutely.
You can commit crime and still hold a high political office. And better yet, you can commit crime and be president of the country. We see that.
I mean, he hasn't been brought to task for Pala Pala.
Right?
Anyway.
They got Zuma as well. So really, Julie, the point for me is that countries fall apart when governance fails at government level. And governance has fundamentally failed at government level. That's why we are going to see a South Africa falling apart, and it will be difficult for us to try and correct it.
Okay, we've got to wrap up now. Let's not forget also, you mentioned Transnet, and all of the other state-owned entities. Let's not forget the taxi mafia as well. They're creating havoc, absolute havoc as well. But be that as it may, we have to wrap up now. Your thoughts going forward, the post-elections, whom do you think and how do you see it all playing out? I mean, you're really close, your ears close to the ground. Are you hopeful? Are you hopeful for, what the election results are going to look like? And do you truly believe that post-elections, we can, as South Africans, jointly start picking up the pieces, start working together and reclaim our country, our beautiful country?
I'm hopeful, Julie. If we were not hopeful, we wouldn't be waking up in the morning anymore, So hope is what keeps us going. So I'm hopeful. When you listen to the polls, I think the most reliable polls are saying that the ANC will probably come in at about 43-44%, which means that they will need to bring in a coalition. And I think the coalitions that they are going to go for is not the extremists of the EFF and the MK. They are going to get your DA coalition. They are going to get your Rise and Mzansi coalition. They are going to get your Action SA coalition. They are going to get the IFP coalitions. All these political parties that are actually centrist political parties who actually want to see the reform agenda happening, who actually want to make sure that we can bring investment into the country. Now, if we can have that kind of government, if we can have someone looking over, the ANC's shoulder to make sure that the thieving doesn't continue and the cadre deployment doesn't continue, I'm hopeful that actually the next 30 years will actually be better. There will be glitches in the beginning, Julie, but I think beyond the few months of glitches, I really think that will be set on, to a better, prosperous South Africa.
Please, God, let that happen. Busisiwe, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you this morning. You are Business Leadership South Africa CEO and board member of the Business Unity South Africa. Hope to have many more conversations with you going forward. God bless.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Julie.
1:09 exactly. News and views on Salam Media. Standing by with the news is Zai Jadwit.